Welcome to a Thoroughbred Network podcast, and I'm your host, Hayley. This week, we catch up with Group 1 winning jockey, Rachel King. Rachel started her career in the saddle as an amateur jockey riding point-to-points in the UK and Ireland, and it wasn't long before she was looking for more and took out her apprentice licence on the flat. Unfortunately, it wasn't the right time or place for Rachel, and so she paused her professional career while heading out on a working holiday to Australia. Fast forward a few years on, and she's now Group 1 winning jockey and the only female jockey to have won a Sydney Cup. Her biggest supporters are the likes of Gai Waterhouse, Godolphin and Mark Newham. If Rachel's story gives you anything, it's the will to never give up. Rachel, I'm so excited to introduce you to Thoroughbred Network.
It's very nice to be here.
Thank you so much, because we've caught you in a day where you're race riding at work farm, so I managed to sneak you in before rides. So I really appreciate you taking the time to see us.
That's okay. No, I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to it.
So, Rach, I always find like our relationship's been quite funny because I felt like we're ships passing in the night almost, and it's funny because we both worked at Clive Cox's, but I was sort of leaving as you arrived. And then a couple of years later, when I was needing paperwork for a visa, you actually signed it off for me from the UK. And then obviously you've arrived, and then later on your career's developed. And where I was a racing manager, you were a jockey that I dealt with quite a lot. So it's actually been a lot of fun. And I've been really privileged to know you from then to now. And I'm more excited to actually see where you're going, because you've gone from great heights since you've arrived. So let's sort of start with you growing up. Like you always had sort of horses growing up, didn't you?
Yeah, I always had ponies from before I can sort of remember, really. And Dad always had a couple of race horses, point-to-pointers, which is sort of very different from here, but a lot of fun. And yeah, just I can't remember really ever not being interested in horses. Just one of those pony mad kids, and just kept sort of growing from there. But it's definitely been a huge part of my life right from, like I said, before I can even remember.
So at home, did you predominantly have thoroughbreds at home?
We always had a couple of thoroughbreds. So Dad had a couple of point-to-pointers, so jumps horses. And he'd normally have one maybe sort of retired racehorse that he would have as a hunter or something like that. So, I mean, I remember, I think my first day at school, because I didn't really want to go to school particularly, because it meant I couldn't ride my ponies. I think Dad took me on his racehorse, like on the front. I sat on the front because it was the only way they could make me go.
Right.
So yeah, definitely ridden thoroughbreds from day one. That was. He used to have to drop me to school on the horse and pick me up, because that was like a bribe of going to school.
So like at school, what like going through school, what did you think that you were going to do when you were going to leave?
I honestly can't remember ever thinking I was going to be anything but a jockey. That's just all I wanted to do. I wanted to be a jumps jockey, which I probably should have caught on a bit sooner than what I sort of did about the height. I was definitely too small to be a jumps jockey. But yeah, that's what I grew up with, the jumps racing, and I loved it. And that's all I ever wanted to do.
So did Dad ride or did he train?
Rode and trained.
Yeah, okay.
So he rode just as an amateur, just on the point-to-point circuit, and then trained like one or two just for him, like no owners or anything, just for, fun. And he loved it.
And what about Mum? Does Mum ride?
Mum does ride. She always had a couple of Welsh cobs growing up, so a bit different, a bit slower pace. She did ride the thoroughbreds every now and then, but yeah, she was happy to sort of have a couple of cobs. She used to breed them every now and then, and just for a bit of fun. And she's still got a couple of horses now. She breeds. She's got some Connemara cross thoroughbreds. So she's got that little bit of sort of sportiness put into the Connemara, and she's bred some really nice ponies.
So you sort of left school. What was your first sort of jobs?
I actually went to Ireland. My first ever job, I went to Adrian Maguire's, who used to ride, and his career was sort of cut short when he broke his neck. He's a jumps jockey and ended up having to retire, being forced to retire, told never to ride a horse again. Of course, I mean, he did, because he's a lunatic.
Don't we all?
Yes. But he used to come out hunting with us. So sort of from the age of about 14, I think I started riding one of his ponies out hunting. And when he was told the news he couldn't ride again, he knew he was going to go home and set up a training establishment. So he offered me a job to go there because their season sort of started a bit earlier than the English point-to-point season. So I just wanted to get going as soon as possible. So I went there for, I think it was about 3 months for the start of their season. He gave me my first ever race ride. So it was pretty special riding for him. I did fall off my first race ride. I got to the second last. I was so excited. I thought I was going to get the whole way around. And then I think the horse probably flicked its ear and I fell off. Like it didn't do much wrong.
So for anyone who doesn't know, what is point to point?
I guess sort of it's kind of like a bit like picnic racing here, but over jumps.
Yep.
And probably a little bit less professional even than picnic racing. You do everything for free. No one gets paid. It's just fun, basically. It's a great way for horses to start, trainers to start, and jockeys to start. It's that sort of real breeding ground. And I mean, I loved it. Now when I look back, I think, God, I was mad doing it. But it gave me a really good grounding and definitely taught me to ride.
We're seeing a lot of horses, predominantly jump horses, a lot of good horses who've came along winning grade ones now, who actually started in point to point. Yeah,
it's definitely a big starting point, especially probably sort of the Irish point to pointing.
Yep.
The horses over there that can win a maiden and then they go to the sales in England and make crazy money and go on to be good horses. So it's sort of, I mean, we don't have trials in England, so I guess in a way it's a bit like a trial. They get to have that bit of experience, not as much pressure on, a little bit easier. Very low key, horses can stay relaxed, things like that. So it seems to be a good sort of breeding ground for all aspects of the sport.
What was your feeling that day on your first point to point ride, like your first proper go?
I was pretty nervous. I sort of don't really get nervous now, but I remember there was no female jockeys changing room, so I literally had to get changed in the lorry or the float, as you call it here. And I think my saddle weighed pretty much more than me. It was ridiculous. I couldn't even get it off the horse after the race. It was so heavy.
So what age were you at this point?
16, just turned 16.
Yeah, right.
So it was a great feeling, and I was on an old schoolmaster that just did everything for me. He was very lazy, but that was the only thing. But he did everything for me. He looked after me until I fell off him. But he was a beautiful old horse. He was called Cololta Thunder. He was actually quite a good horse for age, and he won stacks of point to points. I just remember once I sort of got over that first fence, it was just the best feeling ever. It was just so much fun.
And how many fences do we have roughly in point to point?
18 normally, so 3 miles and 18 fences. So yes. I think it was probably tiredness than anything. That's probably why I fell off.
Well, standing up here, it's probably the longest, really. I mean, I suppose when we're working jump horses at home, we work them long and slow, but you've got to stand up your irons for a long time.
Yeah, definitely.
And hold on.
The legs get that jelly-like feeling pretty quickly.
So how many starts did you have as an amateur?
Oh God, I'm not quite sure actually. I rode sort of, I think for about 4 seasons, sort of straight away just as an amateur, like point to pointing, and then I'd ride in the ladies sort of flat amateur races during the summer. So the point to pointing went from, I think it starts about December now, goes till end of May. So sort of ride for that season, and then during the summer ride in the amateur flat races, but they couldn't ride in the races against professionals, had to always be in the sort of separate races. And then I did have a few over hurdles and jumps as well, as an amateur, like against the professionals. So I think I did, I think it was 4 years, sort of straight away, and then took a bit of a different career path after that.
Why? Well, I mean, I started in jumps racing, and I think if I was to go back to the UK, I'd probably ride out for National Hunt again, just because I liked it so much. Where was the turning point for you when you started looking at flat more than the jumps?
Well, I think, everyone kept telling me from day one, like, what are you doing?
Quite small.
You are very small to be riding over jumps. Very naturally lightweight. A lot of flat jockeys would struggle and would be desperate to, be able to be sort of my weight and height. But I wouldn't listen for quite a while. It wasn't until really I probably sort of took a little bit of a step back from it. I actually went and worked in a stud. I was a stud secretary for a couple of years. Still rode as an amateur alongside that, but didn't ride as much over the jumps. Was a little bit more sort of on the flat, and just because I had another job I had to turn up to. I couldn't be broken all the time, so I had to be a little bit more responsible. And then, I started working, when I probably started working for Clive was when I got more of a feel for the flat horses, I think, and actually realised, what they're like to ride. I hadn't really sat on a good flat horse. I'd ridden a few in amateur races, but they, didn't give you sort of much of a feel. And then riding sort of group horses and nice horses at Clive's, I thought, hang on, it's actually quite fun as well. Maybe this might be okay. And also probably started looking at the money side of it. Jump racing is very dangerous and not a lot of money in it. And the flat side of it, it was just more money, a little bit safer. And riding better horses, I realised it was actually quite a good feeling.
So what was your role at Clive's, and how did you come across that?
So I was racing secretary for him predominantly. It was sort of a bit of a flow on, I guess, from the stud where I was stud secretary there, but I also we used to break in a lot of horses at the stud, so I was still riding. And then, just fancied a change, and I went to the British Racing School and did like a racing secretary's course, sort of get a few more kind of qualifications to apply for the job. And when this one came available, I was really lucky to get it. And I used to ride 2 in the morning first. So I still, kept fit and had that bit of a buzz riding work. And then I'd be in the office to start doing sort of entries and declarations and things like that.
It was I remember my time at Beachdown, like it was unreal, and I think back to the horses that we sat on. They were magnificent. They really were. It was there was a proper flat yard.
Definitely. It's an amazing place to work. Just the whole setup of it, and how, Clive just took so much pride in the whole place. You remember what his life is.
That tractor, that gallop got worked.
It was a nightmare as a racing secretary when he had no reception on his phone and he would go off and do the blooming tractor. And I used to have to drive down the gallop on a number of occasions trying to get hold of him as I had 5 minutes before declarations closed, and he's just disappeared on his tractor. Because he wouldn't let anyone else do it.
He wouldn't let anyone else do it. It was so... He was such a... I loved working for Clive, but it was such a professional environment. Like, he was the boss, and, no one ever questioned that. And you were almost a little bit... I had so much respect for him. I was almost quite scared of him. And he used to wear a flat cap.
Yeah.
And you would know that if you hadn't done very well in a gallop, because the flat cap would levitate off his head.
Well, you could definitely see steam coming out of his ears.
Definitely see steam. But he taught me so much, and I think it was such a good grounding. He did actually, it was quite embarrassing, but when I was 17, I was doing my driving lessons, and he came to me and he said, I would really love to reward you, and I'd love to pay for your driving test. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, that was like, no, I was really nervous. What I thought I was nervous that day, I've never been more nervous rocking up the next day to tell him that I didn't pass.
He paid for a failed test.
Yes. And he came back to me again a week later and he said, all right, I'm going to pay for it again. And I was like, I'm definitely going to pass. Rock up the next day and tell him I didn't pass again. It was so embarrassing. And he came up to me the third, I was mucking out a box, and he handed me this check and he said, this really is the last time that I'm going to pay for this. And I was so elated when the next day I said, I actually did it. I passed. But, that's he really appreciated people that worked for him. He didn't need to do that. I was very young at the time, and, it was lovely of him to do. But, as much as he was a good boss, and he was a very strict man, but he really cared about his staff. So I think that was a really good grounding for you.
Yeah,
to
definitely.
have.
It was like I said, just a fantastic place to work. And I still, same as probably you, still would talk to him now.
Yeah.
even my parents still, will rock up to him at the races in England and go and have a chat with him, and he'll always make time for you. He's just that kind of person. And like I said, the ultimate professional, but also the ultimate gentleman. He just would always have time for everyone. And that's, a credit to him and why he's so successful.
Great schooling.
Definitely.
Great schooling. So at that point, Rachel, you were starting to have a look at, so you were always just an amateur in the UK, or did you take your apprenticeship out?
I did take my apprenticeship out. It's sort of in between. I think it was just before I went to the stud, actually. But I lasted 6 months. I rode one winner. I struggled.
It is hard to get a ride, though. It's very different to here. I find, especially, and I was talking to someone the other day, it's even the racing calendar is quite, we know that we're going to Gosford and Hawkesbury and wherever else, where sometimes the declarations come out and you actually don't know where you're going until the decks are out. You've got no idea where you're going that week.
Yeah.
You might pick up one here, two here, whatever, and it's sort of a bit of a fight that way. So it is hard to get a go as an apprentice in the UK.
Definitely. And I think the system here where you have the country, provincial and city racing makes it a lot easier to sort of break in, because you've got that country racing where you can start, you're not competing against, the best. It's a little bit easier sort of stepping stones, whereas in England, you're trying to compete for rides against Brian Moore, at every meeting. It's silly, in that sort of way. And I remember I tried to do it, I think it was sort of the middle of winter when I turned apprentice, and probably wasn't a great time because the racing isn't great, but I sort of thought, well, also some of the big boys are away, things like that. There might be a few more opportunities, but there was actually nothing more depressing than trailing around to Wolverhampton on a Friday night in the snow, and it was -5 probably most nights, and you were racing at 10 o'clock at night, and then had to get up for work the next morning. It was, it probably wasn't ideal. It wasn't a good way to start, because I thought, well, you know what, I'm just going to go back to being an amateur and ride when I want and have a bit of fun and enjoy it, and that's what I did. So, I tried, but ultimately failed miserably as an apprentice in England.
So what point did you think, I might have a go and see what's going on in Australia?
Well, I was just about ready to try and actually be apprentice again. I thought, do you know what, I'm going to give it one more go. They have an age limit on when you can be apprentice up until, in England, I think it's 27. So I thought I need to try it, before I get close to that age and see what I can do. I've got a bit more experience having worked for Clive. I'm probably got someone better behind me. But I thought, well, it was again coming into winter. So I thought, well, I'm not going to make the same mistake again. I'm not going to trail around on the all-weather all winter. I'm going to go away, try and learn a bit more and just further myself so I can come back and be a better jockey. And I looked at sort of America first. Didn't really know how to kind of get in there. I didn't really know anyone there. And I had a friend that lives in Melbourne, and I just sort of rang her and said, what do you think? If I come over for a couple of months, do you think it will help my riding? And she said, yeah, definitely do it. She said she lived in Melbourne, but she said, oh, you should go to Sydney just because it's a great place to go and visit. I think you really enjoy it. So, I just went to Sydney for 2 months, and that was eight years ago.
I think we've all done that.
Yeah.
You get sucked in, don't you?
Definitely.
So did you originally come for Bart or for Gai?
For Bart.
For Bart.
Yeah. So when Bart and James had just joined up together, so I did my sort of first 2 months for them. And it was when I didn't, unfortunately, get to sort of meet Bart. He was sort of getting quite sick by that stage. But to be able to work under someone like James was great.
It's paid dividends at this end of your career.
Definitely. Yeah.
So you'd come out for what was supposed to be a couple of months. When did you think I might take the plunge and hang around here?
Probably the sort of last couple of weeks I was here, I started to kind of watch a lot more of the racing, see the opportunities, see the, as I mentioned before, the sort of stepping stones, the country, provincial and city racing. And I thought, well, this might be a bit easier, just to break in. And I also got to the stage where I thought, well, if I try here, I can always go back to England. England's always going to be there waiting for me. It's not going to go anywhere. I can always go back. But if I don't try it, I'll always be in England thinking, what if I had a go? So, the 2 months was up. I did go home, but I literally went home, packed up everything, said bye to mum and dad. I was home for 6 weeks and then I came back again.
Did you have to tell Clive that you weren't coming back?
Yes.
I did that.
Yeah.
It's a bit frightening.
I know. I think he was a bit like, oh, deja vu.
Well, there was Lauren Lauren Taskis, who works for Dilmy, she was maybe 6 months in front of me, then I followed suit, and then you weren't far behind.
I know. So now I think if any of his staff ever go to Australia, he's like, bye forever. I know you're not coming back.
Amy Dickens, she went back.
Yeah, she did go back.
Because she came work for Gary Patelli. She did go back, so that was good. She was loyal.
He's probably quite scared about letting anyone ever go to Australia again.
So when you came back, you decided to work for Gai.
Yes. Yeah. So I thought about, like, I would have loved to have, gone to James's at that stage, but he already had an apprentice there. And it just sort of wasn't really a spot for me. So I thought, well, okay, I'll go next door, which was literally Gai's. But she's got a lot of horses. So I'd heard of her. I hadn't heard of many people in Australia, but I knew who Gai Waterhouse was. And applied for a job there. And so the first year I worked there, I actually didn't race ride, didn't do any trials, just had sort of experience. And she actually found out that I had been a racing secretary, and she was desperate for me to work in the office. Absolutely desperate. She was like, no, it'll be much better for you. They had a racing manager job available. So she really wanted me to do that. And she tried very hard to keep me away from riding. She sent me traveling. I went to Brisbane for 3 months. I didn't even know where Brisbane was when I got on the float. When they told me it's going to take me 2 days to get there, I was like, where are we going? And she also told me I was going for 2 weeks, and I stayed for 3 months.
Right.
So that was an experience. And then she sent me to America with a horse. And then she sent me to Melbourne to do a quarantine with a horse. So she just kept sending me away just so I couldn't possibly get a license.
Where did you go? Where did you go with to America?
A horse called Pornichet.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So
David loved Pornichet.
Yeah, he was a beautiful horse. So Gai bought him from, I think it's a Goff sale that they have during Ascot. She bought him there. I think it's Goff sale. And she bought him there anyway. And she literally rang me. It was like 9 o'clock at night one night, and I thought, why on earth is she calling? This is really bizarre. And she said, I don't come to work in the morning. And I was like, okay. And she said, I need you to fly to France tomorrow afternoon. I was like, what? And literally, I was like, are you joking or is this serious? I didn't know what was going on. And I rang the office, and they're like, no, we've just booked you on a flight. You're going to France tomorrow. You got to pick up this horse that she's just bought. It's got an entry in the Belmont Derby. So you've got to pick him up, take him to America. He's got to run in the Belmont Derby, and then you can drop him back to England. You can have a holiday at home, and then you can come home. Oh. So it was just the most bizarre series of events, and it all literally worked like that. It was just crazy, but typical Gai. Like, I turned up to this French stable in the middle of Chantilly, like the most beautiful place, and I was like, hi guys, I'm here to pick up Pornichet, and they didn't even know I was going. They had no idea. So,
oh my goodness.
Sort of took this horse out of the stable, took it to America, but it was an incredible experience. Like, I got to fly on a cargo plane with the horse, like doing all of that. I'd never done anything like that in my life. So it was definitely an incredible experience.
Unreal. Unreal. So at what point did Gai give in?
Well, sort of helped having Mark Newham there. So Mark was still sort of assistant there, and I kept asking. I had sort of the papers ready. I was like, please, can we, sign these papers, Gai? They're all ready to go. I want to start doing trials and things like that. And she wouldn't do it. So I got Mark to sign them. I was like, well, I'm just going to try and find a way around it.
As good as.
So next minute, I just turned up with the trials, and she didn't know anything about it. It was a little bit of a shock. She was like, what are you doing here? But yeah, I think when she saw sort of my determination and that I was going to do it, I said I wanted to do it. This is what I wanted to do. She was like, okay. And then she sort of gave in. Then still took a little while for her to actually give me a race ride and things like that. But, it was great. Like, it made me work for it and made me appreciate what she then did give me. So it was, standard Gai, just that a brilliant grounding.
So how did your apprenticeship go? Like, where did you have to go? Where did you have to go and get most of your rides originally?
I did a lot of travelling early. My first race ride was in Tamworth. I went to Tamworth for one ride. It was 5 hours from Sydney. So
it was a winner, though.
It was a winner. So that was good. But I did a lot of riding up that kind of way, sort of Hunter Valley way, Scone, Muswellbrook, those sort of places. And I got really good support. And it was hard, yes, being based in Sydney. But for me, it sort of outweighed the negative, I guess, of, traveling all the time. getting the experience at Gai's was just so positive. Being able to work with jockeys every day, ride good horses. I was learning more. So I thought, well, if I move to a country trainer, I'm not going to get that same experience. Yes, I won't have to drive as far, but it's, definitely the sort of positives outweigh the negatives. So I did a lot of traveling, but I also got a lot of rides because I was apprenticed to Gai Waterhouse. If you rang a trainer and said, oh, Gai Waterhouse apprentice, it's available to ride your horse, they didn't even look who you were. They're just like, yep, that's fine. So
it was a big help.
It definitely helped, definitely.
Because your first winner at Tamworth, it wasn't for Gai, was it?
No, it was for Mark Schmetzer. So
she'd still have been elevated for you.
She still claimed it for sure.
A pretty good way to start getting that first win, because it sort of gets the monkey off your back, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it's sort of, a couple of sort of newspaper, very small, but little bits in newspaper and stuff like that. Just got my name out there and got people sort of, pricking their ears and wanting to have a look. So it was, I think, important to definitely start off on that right foot.
I remember when you first had your license, did you have a claim?
Yes, I had 2 kilos everywhere. Okay. They sort of, it was a bit funny. The way the rule book's written is a bit not great for people coming from overseas. So every winner you've ridden overseas is classed as a city winner. So it takes a lot off your claim, which makes it very difficult. But I still had that 2 kilos, so it had a little bit of an advantage.
And you were light enough.
Very light.
So at what point did we start? Did you see more rides coming more available for you, Metropolitan?
So Gai was very strict in sort of working through the grades. Like I had to outride my whole country claim before going to the provincials, had to outride my whole provincial claim before going to the city. And then even when I wanted to go to the city, I never forget my first, I think it was a Friday night, my first ever ride in the city, and I'd won on a horse. I think I did still actually have 1.5 left of the provincials, but I had like 2 winners left. And I'd won on a horse, I think 3 times at the provincials, and he needed to take that next step and go to town. So it was actually for Gerard Austin, and I begged Gai for weeks and weeks after. I was like, please, can I just go and ride this one horse? I won't take any other rides. I just want to ride this one horse on a Friday night. Anyway, eventually she said yes, and then she let me take one other. So I had 2 rides on the Friday night. Well, the first one ended up being in her time. So I was riding in her time in a benchmark race around Canterbury. I think I sat 3 wide, no cover the whole way. And of course, it still won by about 4. Like it just was, I was like, this horse is quite good.
Squing okay.
Goes on to be a nice Group 1 winner. And the other horse was a horse called Regins of Gerard Austin's, and he won as well. So I'm there thinking, this is great. How easy is this? I've turned up, I've had 2 rides, 2 winners. And I went to work the next morning and Gai said, well done, you're not going back again. And I was like, oh, okay, what do you mean? She said, no, you've still got a couple of winners to ride at the provincials. That's it. No more city rides. And that was it. And she would not let me go back. And they even offered me the ride on in her time next start, wanted me to stay with her, wasn't allowed. So
tough schoolmaster,
but the best. Just made me realise, the ups and downs, I guess, of racing and working hard for what you get and appreciating those little moments as well, because you never know when something's going to bring you back down again. So, but then once I finished my provincial claim, then I was allowed to sort of kick off in the city, and she was great. Like she, supported me the whole way through. I was able to win a Sydney Apprentice Premiership and things like that. And it was hard because I lost my claim with about 6 months to go. So it made it really tough because I was sort of competing against everyone else that had a claim, and I was in front, and it's just one of those where the straight felt like it was going on forever. I didn't know if I was ever going to get there, if someone was going to run me down or not. And it got a bit close. But luckily, I had really good support from a lot of owners and trainers.
Sorry to interrupt this episode, but could you do me a favour? And if you enjoyed this podcast, could you please rate and review our content on your favourite podcast platform, so we can grow and be easily found by like-minded people like yourself. Thanks. Back to the episode. That support sort of continued on when Mark Newham went out on his own and you were able to ride your first Group 1 for him.
Yeah, definitely. Mark's been huge part of my career. Like I said, from literally signing my license papers right at the start, and when he started training on his own, I had rides from him right from the start, and to ride his first Group 1 winner and to be my first Group 1 winner was extra special.
How did you celebrate that night?
I didn't actually do much, really. I think I was too overwhelmed about the whole thing. We just had dinner and that was about it with some friends. But no, look, yeah, Mark's been great, just incredible. And I actually had my first Group 3, Group 2 and Group 1 winner all for Mark. So he's been a big part of my career.
He was also a very good rider. But did he ever coach you in that sense with your rides and help you out that way? Yeah,
definitely. Right from the start, he was always a big part of all of the jockeys at Gai's that sort of rode for Gai. For one, he knew the horses really well, but also because, he was out there doing it himself as well. He knew what he was doing. And that's, credit to why he's such a good master now, I think, of his apprentices. He can ride work with you, alongside you, give you pointers literally while he's next to you, which, not a lot of trainers can do. And having been out there and done it, definitely is a big advantage when you're riding for him. He can read a race. You can't bullshit him when you try and make excuses, that's for sure, because he'll always call you out. But also he can read a race and see when things go wrong that are out of your control. So it makes it a lot easier to ride for him.
A very good master. You also got to ride in the Melbourne Cup. What was that feeling like when you thinking, oh dear, I'm no longer going to Wolverhampton anymore. I've been granted to ride in the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah, it was really special. And to be riding for Lloyd Williams as well, like in those colours, I just remember putting them on and thinking, this is real now. It's happening. And I mean, it was a shame because during COVID, there was obviously not much crowd there. But a couple of my really close friends, actually my friend Tara, who literally was the one who told me to come to Sydney, she was able to come. So it was sort of beautiful that, in that way I had close friends there. But just the whole experience was unbelievable. I just wanted to do it again. As soon as I crossed the line, I wanted to go around again.
I take it Mum and Dad watched.
They did, yes. I think Dad had a Melbourne Cup party, which worked out. I don't know what time it started in the morning, but he was opening bottles of champagne.
Oh my goodness.
He didn't care what time it was.
It's so amazing though. Like that is a big feat, and especially here in Australia, we love our golden slippers and our Melbourne Cups, and to get a ride in the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
Like this big go. Plus the fact you don't rode point to point. You could have stood up the whole distance. You could have done it 3 times.
I did have a few sort of people asking, 2 miles, how are you going to go? And I was like, I've ridden over 3 miles and 18 fences. I'm fine.
I didn't get to the last one, but it was all good.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing. So I think what we've seen, the support in Sydney is always, like I wouldn't have ever imagined you'd want to go anywhere else because the sport has been so good, but specifically from Godolphin.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I've had so much support from everyone, but I sort of started riding for Godolphin towards the end of my apprenticeship. And they just been, fantastic. Look, they sort of put me on, I think I still just had a claim when they started putting me on, but it never stopped when I lost that claim, which I think, is a big sign of that sort of commitment and a bit of loyalty there. They were happy to stick by me, and I've, travelled interstate for them. I've gone to Melbourne for them for Group 1s. I've, ridden for them in Brisbane and things like that. So they've been a huge part of my career. And, again, to put those colours on, if every time you put them on, you get a sense of confidence. You're riding beautiful horses that have been trained to the minute. They're just a pleasure to ride for. And the whole team, it's such a good team effort, which I really like about it. There's so many people that are a part of it. James is a fantastic trainer, but the people behind him are just as good, and no one could do it without each other, which I really like that sort of side of it.
Now, when I was having a look at your stats, and support you year in, year out. I think that's super. It's a credit to you. It's a credit to you, especially since he's known you since when you first arrived here, and he's still supporting you now. It's a partnership that's worked very well, and obviously you've ridden plenty of winners for them, so you're happy to be on board.
Hopefully it continues.
Rach, we've seen a really special moment this year, and your mum was able to be trackside to watch it. Can you take us through that day?
So Sydney Cup Day, it was a bit of a whirlwind, I guess. So Mum had literally flown in from England the day before.
Did she come specifically for that ride?
No. She just came because it sort of worked out. She had a bit of time off over Easter holidays she works at a school. So she was like, stuff it, I'm going to come for 3 weeks. So I picked her up the day before. I didn't give her any time to rest on the Friday. I was like, I'm going to go to a lunch thing and I've got to go and do a talk at a lunch. So you're coming. So I took her to that. But it was the best way to get over jet lag. I just filled her up with champagne and gave her lunch for the day. And then she was very tired that night. And then the next day took her to the Sydney Cup. And Mum and Dad have been here before. And I've ridden winners and things. But they normally had come in wintertime. So a lot sort of lesser racing. Hadn't seen me live ride in a Group 1 at all. So for Mum to be here and then for it to go and win was just, incredible. It was very, very special.
You're the first female to win the Sydney Cup.
Yes.
That was quite cute.
Yeah.
That was just so Mum came on her own. So what did she do throughout the race day? Did she just look after herself?
So Sydney Cup Day, I think I had an invite for like a box thing. I think it was some hospitality. She was actually quite lucky because a sort of ATC had organised a few different hospitality things over the carnival. So I just kept putting her name forward. I was like, go on, go and socialise with these people. So Mum would just trundle on in there on her own.
How proud.
She's very sociable, so she got on with everyone. But yeah, it was definitely a very special day.
I would have loved she had been there going, she wouldn't have let anyone not know, my daughter's riding today. That would have been such a special day. But to see that, I just think, goodness, like she'd be so, so proud for that day.
She was definitely a good luck charm as well. I've rode more winners than ever while she was here. It was great. I nearly didn't let her go home.
So, I mean, what does Dad think, because Dad obviously knew you from when you were an amateur and riding point to points. He must be thrilled where you are now.
Definitely. Like I know when I first said I was coming to Australia, he wasn't so thrilled. It was sort of like, why are you going there? Why aren't you staying here and riding in point to points and things like that? But to see the success I've had, like he, is so supportive, loves it. He watches every single ride, never misses any of them ever. So it's also probably my biggest critique as well. Biggest supporter, but biggest critique. So it's, he keeps me grounded, definitely. We'll point out if I don't do anything wrong, which is always helpful. But yeah, he's forever, I think, telling everyone when he goes out hunting and point to pointing, oh, Rachel's done this, Rachel's ridden in this Group 1 and Rachel's ridden in the Melbourne Cup and things like that. So he definitely gets very, very proud.
Boasting rights.
Yeah.
Good on him. Rachel, it's so easy to notify these good days, but it is a tough go being a jockey. Would you say there's more average days than good days?
Yeah, there probably is, definitely. And like I've sort of, I think, probably in the last 12 months or so, I've really learned how to deal with those, average days and get over them. Because to be honest, that's all you can do. Like, you just got to get over them. You got to move on. Yes, you got to learn from them. But I probably used to let it sort of dwell on me a little bit too much, and I would let it get to me. And it's just through, sort of telling myself to get over it and move on and get on with it, but also from other people, helping me. Darren Beeman's been a big help to me, like from Godolphin. I have phoned him on a number of occasions going, what am I doing? Why can't I do this? Or why can't I do that? Or, and, he's very, very, very good at sort of sitting you down and making you think it over properly, and not beating yourself up about it, and learning from it, but learning the right way to do things and how to correct mistakes you think you've made, or even if sometimes there'll be mistakes you think you've made and you haven't even done anything wrong, like
it's just,
but it's just, you can get in a very vicious circle. So look, there's so many people within the jockeys room that are a big help. But like I said, Darren's been a big help to me in that way as well.
It's a different job to general people because, if you work in an office job or, anything, actually just a job that's not televised, you can have a bad day, no one knows about it. And you can, the boss gives you a tune-up, you can go home again. But your job is televised. So if you do make a mistake, there's everyone and the dogs that say it. And for some reason, we do have, keyboard warriors at home who seem to think that their opinion matters. And I feel like they obviously must need to take it. So I'd imagine mentally it would be a tough gig.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, you do get those keyboard warriors, and that's probably another thing I've learned to sort of deal with. I actually don't mind reading them. I don't know. I just sort of laugh at them. And I kind of think, oh, I have a little chuckle. I think you've got to be in the right frame of mind to do it. But that's, you know, sort of knowing yourself when you just turn your phone off and don't look, or when you do want to have a look and you have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a giggle. And, you know, there are always people that have had $5 on and they're annoyed that they've lost their $5 or something like that. You know, that's what I sort of laugh at. That's how I look at it now. And, but like you said, it is tough. You know, you have got everything, every move you make is on TV. So that's another reason why you have to be so good at sort of pulling yourself together, you know, after a bad ride or a horse not performing or whatever's happened in the race before. You know, you've got that 20, 25 minutes in between to say, right, move on. Now it's my responsibility to show up for the next group of owners, trainer and the horse in the right sort of frame of mind and be stable again and focused on what you're doing and not be thinking what happened half an hour ago.
What is the jockey's room like? What happens in there?
You don't want to know. No, it's I think I really enjoy, like, the girls' jockeys room's great. We've got a really good bunch of girls, especially in Sydney. It's quite social. It's quite relaxed. It's funny because, you know, it's not many sports where you literally sit next to your competitor. You know, we're out there, we're jockeying for positions, we're, you know, pushing each other out the way, whatever, you know, and it can be a bit rough, but you come back and you just sit next to each other and you carry on like normal. You know, there aren't many sort of grudges held. There can be words sometimes, but it's always forgotten about very quickly, and everyone is very much a family, and you sort of see that in the good times and the bad times. You know, when I know when I sort of had my, you know, Sydney Cup winner and my first Group 1 winner, you know, everyone couldn't be sort of quick enough to come and congratulate you. But the same when you have a bad day. I know when I've had a fall and you'll suddenly be surrounded by jockeys, you know, everyone wants to come and make sure you're okay, and there's no end of help. Everyone's there to help you no matter what. So it's good to have that support network around you.
Do you get to eat in between races?
I do. Not many do.
I always see the lady walk by with the trolley and I'm like, me.
I am probably the envy of nearly every jockey in the room because I eat non-stop, and I have never missed a meal or had to sweat or wasted or done anything.
But how good is that? How much better would that put you in a position, especially being an athlete, to think I can fully give my body all the nutrition that it needs with a bit extra, if need be. I think that's good. Definitely.
Like, I know, like, you know, there's obviously a lot of them in there that don't have that luxury, and I don't know how they do it. I honestly don't. Like, it's incredible the way they can do it, and I guess the bodies get used to it in a way. But for me, yeah, like, I know I can go to the races every day feeling good. I've had, you know, a good breakfast or whatever. I can keep fueling myself through the day. Especially on a Saturday, we have 10 races every Saturday now. Like, going all day without food and probably without a lot of liquid would definitely be very tough. So I'm very lucky in that way that I, you know, can keep nutrition up.
You have a good relationship with the scales.
Yes.
That's good. Because I don't have a great relationship with mine. And I'm not an athlete. So I can imagine how that could wear you down. But I think you're incredibly lucky to be in the shape that you're in.
Very blessed.
There is a man in your life. He's grey. And he does have four legs. But he is very privileged to live at home with you, which is a gorgeous hole called Path of Glory. How did you end up being in your backyard?
Typical girl falling in love with a grey horse. I used to ride him a lot race day for Freedman's and China Horse Club, and I don't know, from day one I just fell in love with him. I just thought this horse is just different, and I'd never thought about having a horse outside of racing. You know, I never imagined myself having one. I was quite happy being a jockey and giving the horse back to the trainer at the end of it, you know, not having to deal with it. But he was just different. It's just something about him. I have always been a big fan of greys, which probably helped. But yeah, just from day one when I first rode him, I just loved him.
Was your first ride a winner on him?
No, I remember because I remember he'd only just come over from
He's an
England.
import, that's right.
And his first time I rode him for Richard, I think I ran like second last on him, and I don't know why, but he just gave me the best feeling. And I said to Richard, I said, this horse will win next start. And he just laughed at me. He was like, what are you talking about? He can't get out of his own way. Like I don't know what to do with him. He'd put blinkers on him. He'd sort of tried to get him, fired up Australian way of racing. And I said, trust me, please take the blinkers off. I'll win on him next start. And I can't remember if I won or ran second on him, but he went really well his next start.
I think you won on him.
I think he
next
won,
start.
yeah. And I remember Richard was just like, I don't even know what you did, but
excellent job.
I don't know. I just had faith in him, and I just sort of, after riding him that first time, I worked out how I needed to ride him and took the blinkers off him, and he turned out to be a great horse for me. I won a Wyong Cup on him. I think it was a JRA plate or something like that on him. He's just been a great horse, and to have him outside my door now is really special.
Yeah, because I think you won the GRA plate. And I think you went and had 2 starts in Queensland.
Yeah.
And then he must have been retired.
Yeah.
So how did you go about taking him home?
So, yeah, he went to Queensland. He went out for a spell, and I think he came back in. They weren't going to retire him. He came back in, and he just tweaked a tendon. He did his first bit of 3/4. I think he did like a 12% damage or something. It wasn't sort of much, but they scanned it. There was something there. So the China Horse Club have, very much big supporters in sort of the welfare of their horses and things. They said, well, he's done his job. We don't need to keep racing him on, and we'll just let him retire and, have a happy life. And Richard rang me that morning and he said, if you want your horse, he's retiring today. You need to ring China Horse Club now, because there was a long list of people that really wanted him. So I got in touch with someone at China Horse Club. I said, look, I know there's so many people that want this horse. He's obviously a beautiful grey. Everyone wants him. But, I'd really like to put my name forward, and hopefully you might pick me. So they rang me back, I think it was the next day, and said, yep, you can have him.
How good. So you've rehabbed him, and you had a little jump on him on the weekend.
Yeah, and he's now turned into a professional jumper. Well, he's jumped twice. But no, he's taken to it so well. Like, he's all of his, little bits of retraining. I haven't done much on him. I haven't sort of had him in for very long, but everything I've asked him to do, he's just done it. He's just got a fantastic attitude. He had his first little whole course of jumps the other day and handled it all really well, like a little pro. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do.
You're very lucky. And do you think you would take up show jumping or something as a pastime in between being a professional jockey and a dog mom?
Yeah. I'd love to. Yeah, that would be sort of the ultimate goal. Like, I did a lot of show jumping growing up on ponies and things, and I'd love to do like eventing or something, but I just don't have the patience to do dressage. I'm just like,
it's a long weekend.
Yeah, I can't do it.
You become broke real quick.
Show jumping, I'm in and out, done. So I think that would be there. That's sort of the ultimate goal, to get him going. And there's so many great classes and things now that you've got for the X-race horses. So it's definitely worth having one in your stable.
Rachel, you've came from ponies at home, pointing, professional, to a professional jockey, to working at a stud. So you've had such a broad schooling of the industry. We do have this dark cloud that hangs over us called welfare. How do you feel about the welfare in the industry?
I think, like you said, from working from so many different aspects of it, look, all I've seen is it get better and better over the years. Like, there's still areas definitely, that can always be improved. I don't think we're done, but I think stuff like having all the programs for the X-race horses, the retraining centres, people like you and me, taking on these X-race horses and giving them that next career and things like that are definitely becoming more appealing to a wider audience, which I think is great. And the money that you see going into it is really good. Like I said, there's always more that can be done from everyone, all participants, from every trainers, owners, jockeys, stable hands, everyone. We can always do that a little bit more. But I think we are, it's getting there, definitely. And it seems to be improving a lot.
If you sort of look back to you having your very first point-to-point ride, would you have imagined that you got here?
Definitely not. No, no way. Not in my wildest dreams, I don't think.
If you could have told yourself something at the start in your very first ride, what would it be, apart from stay on?
Apart from stay on. I guess just, but not giving up, and there was a few times when I kind of did give up. I went off to be a stud secretary. I went to be a racing secretary. I failed at being an apprentice for 6 months. And I did kind of give up a few times, but racing always sucked me back in, and always, I didn't give up on that dream, but I sort of paused for a few times, which, look, I don't think there's any harm in taking little breaks. But I wouldn't, I'd always say just don't, if you've got that dream, don't give up on it long term. It'll happen. It will happen, and hard work does pay off. And it is hard. It's not going to be easy, but we all know that any kind of job within horses is not easy, and we do it for the love of it more than anything. But there's that sense of achievement when you can reach the sort of that goal or something that you've aimed for, definitely outweighs all that hard work and what you've had to put up with in the meantime.
Other people looking to come into the industry, Rachel, would you advise them to come on in, have a go?
Yeah, definitely. It's not for everyone, but I think it's one of those, similar to how I was sort of with coming to Australia, it's, if you get into the industry, you're not stuck there forever. You can get out again. If it's not for you, that's fine, and it's not for everyone. But if you happen to be one of those people like us that, fall in love with the industry, there are lots of different things you can do within it that might appeal to you. You might start off as a stable hand and realise you want to do something completely different, and, I don't know, go and be a horse physio, a chiropractor or something like that. There's so many different aspects, but you can still be within the industry. I would definitely always say, have a go, and if you happen to fall in love with it, then great. But if you don't, then it sort of doesn't matter, but it's definitely, it's a great industry to be involved in. And I think once you sort of start to meet people and make those friends and realise what a family it is, and what a community it is, it's sort of like nothing else, really. No, I don't know. I can't really compare it to any other sort of sport or industry where everyone is so connected and everyone sort of works together.
What's on your bucket list?
Well, win a Melbourne Cup. Now I've ridden in one. That's probably a big one. And look, I'd love to go back to England and ride in either a big meeting or a big race of some sort over there. Would be great. Now I've sort of furthered myself in my career. I'm not the apprentice that lasted 6 months and rode one winner. Hopefully I can ride a little bit better than that now, and I'd love to be able to go back over there and, either for like an Ascot or something like that, or Goodwood, would be a dream.
I feel like that calling is just around the corner. It has
so.
to be. Rachel, I think you're a wonderful role model for sport. If it's not obviously mostly our sport, but for all sports, I think you're a wonderful role model. I've loved your story. It's not been handed to you in a plate. It's not been given. It was hard work. You started it, you paused it, you started it again, and I think that was probably the making of you. So I'm delighted you're in our industry, and I'm so delighted that you've taken the time to talk to us about it today. I really appreciate that, and I'm so excited to see where you're going.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.